Chapter 13, Argument, Convincing Others, by Jamie Golfus.
Hi, my name is Jamie Golfus, and for my Jigsaw presentation, I will be talking to you about Chapter 13, Argument, Convincing Others. All the information I got for this presentation came from the Strategies for Successful Writers book. My chapter was very long, and I thought it would be helpful for you to learn about it too. Since we have so much to go over, we better get started.
We can first start our presentation off by asking the simple question: what is an argument? An argument is a paper grounded on logical, structured evidence that attempts to convince the reader to accept an opinion, take some action, or do both. The topics I found most helpful under the rational appeal were opinions of authorities, primary source of information, statistical findings, personal experience, and evaluation evidence. Opinions of authorities. Authority would be considered a recognized expert in some kind of field. Authoritative opinions is the only kind to use. They play a powerful role in winning readers over to your side. Primary source of information. Documents or other materials produced by individuals directly involved with the issue or conclusions you reach by carrying out an investigation yourself. Primary source information can help you build strong support for your position. Some examples of primary source information would be like autobiographies, interviews, and newspapers. There are many other different kinds of primary source information. Statistical findings. Statistics can really help your argument. Statistics, data show how much, how many, or how often. But beware for biased statistics. They can be tracked to biased opinions. Recent data is a lot better than older data, but statistics are often misused, so take notice to what is being said and what seems most realistic. Personal experience. Personal experience can be the strongest essential to use in an argumentative message. Personal experience can be the strongest because it can be emotional and can really grasp people's attention. Evaluation evidence. You need to reach a conclusion, so ask yourself questions like these. How credible are the sources of information? How reliable is the evidence? How much confirming evidence is there? How much contradictory evidence is there? How well does the evidence actually support or fit the claim? What does the evidence actually allow you to conclude? Rational appeal then includes three reasoning strategies: induction, deduction, and analogy and argument. Induction. An argument from induction occurs when a general claim is supported by specific evidence, whether direct observations, statistical data, or scientific studies. Induction makes your conclusions probable but rarely proves them. The greater the number of observation and larger the population surveyed, the more strongly the conclusion is supported. Most of our conclusions are supported inductively. While writing an inductions argument, there are two important things to remember. Demonstrate the credibility of your evidence, and show how the evidence fits the conclusions you want to reach. Deduction. Deduction is a process of argumentation that demonstrates how a specific conclusion follows logically from some initial premises about which people might agree. When arguing from deduction, you need to make clear how your conclusions do actually follow from the agreed-upon premises. Those premises may also be questionable and need support, whether by induction or by demonstrating their deductive relationship to other strongly held ideas. Deduction can then be broken down into two different categories: reduction ad absurdum and syllogism. Reduction ad absurdum, which means to reduction to absurdity. It is used to question a position by showing that its consequences are problematic if carried to their logical end. Syllogism. Syllogism is a set of three statements that follow a fixed pattern to sure sound reassuring. The first statement of syllogism would be the major premise. The major premise names a category of things and says that all or none of them shares a certain characteristic. The second statement of syllogism is the minor premise. The minor premise notes that a thing or group of things belongs to that category. third statement would be the conclusion. The conclusion states that the thing or group shares the characteristics of the category. An example of syllogism would be this. The major premise is, all persons are mortal. The minor premise is, Sue Davis is a person. Therefore, the conclusion is, therefore, Sue Davis is a mortal. Avoiding misuses of syllogism. Make sure you use the proper logical order, and make sure the major premise of your syllogism is in fact true. Analogy and argument. An analogy compares two unlike situations of things. Arguers often use analogies to contend that because two items share one or more likelinesses, they are also alike in other ways. Analogy is the weakest form of rational appeal. It is helpful to test an analogy by listening to the similarities and differences. The greater the number and closeness of these similarities, the better the argument by analogy. Analogies never prove anything, but explain and show probability, which can be quite persuasive. After learning about the rational appeal and reasoning strategies, let's move on to learn about the emotional appeal and the ethical appeal. The emotional appeal. An emotional appeal can lend powerful reinforcement. Emotion can win the hearts and help of people who would otherwise passively accept a logical argument but take no action. Developing an emotional appeal. Identify the stories, scenes, or events of the topic that arouse the strongest emotional response within you. Think about the best words that you could use. Write for an emotional conclusion that will help your argument. The ethical appeal. While writing an argumented piece of writing, stay away from rude comments that could offend the audience. Come across as a pleasant, fair-minded, and decent writer, and you will gain the reader's support much easier. While writing an argument, fretting out fallacies is very important to pay attention to. We will be looking at things like hasty generalization, non sequitur, stereotyping, card stacking, either-or falsy, begging the question, circular argument, arguing off the point, the argument ad hominem, appeal to the crowd, guilt by association, post hoc, ergo propter hoc, and faulty analogy. Hasty generalization. When someone bases a conclusion on too little evidence. Non sequitur, which means it does not follow. It draws in unwanted conclusions from seemingly ample evidence. Stereotyping. A person who commits this fallacy attaches one or more supposed characteristics to a group or one of its members. Stereotyping things can ruin your whole argument. Card stacking. The writer presents only part of the available evidence on a topic, deliberately omitting essential information that would alter the picture considerably. Either-or falsy. Asserts that only two choices exist, when in fact several options are possible. Begging the question. A person who begs the question assists the truth of some unproved statement. Circular argument. Supports a supposition by merely restating it. Something is because something is. A lot like begging the question. Arguing off the point. The writer who argues off the point, which is sometimes called ignoring the question or a red herring, sidetracks an issue by introducing irrelevant information. The argument as hominem. An argument that attacks an individual rather than that individual's opinion or qualifications. Appeal to the crowd. An appeal of this sort arouses an emotional response by playing on the irrational fears and prejudices of the audience. Guilt by association. This falsely point out some similarity or connection between one person or group and another. Post hoc, ergo propter hoc. After this, therefore, because of this. Assuming that because one event follows another, the first caused the second. Faulty analogy. Assuming that two circumstances or things are similar in all important respects, when in fact they are not. If you didn't quite understand those falsies, the book gives you great examples for each one of them, so look into the book for a better understanding. After learning how to get rid of the false things, it's finally time to start writing. While writing your argument, there are many important things to look at. Things like planning and drafting the argument, focusing your question, exploring your topic, arguments for different purposes, directing arguments to readers, Rogerian arguments, exploratory argument, drafting the argument, and revising the argument. Planning and drafting the argument. Some instructors will assign you a topic, but if they don't, choose a topic that will interest you and others. Choosing a topic you like will make it easier for you to learn about. Focusing your question. While thinking of your topic, be prepared to focus in on a question. You may come to find out there are a lot of questions that could be asked, answered, supported, or against. Exploring your topic. By doing research and having good sources will make your argumentative paper be more informative and truthful. Argument for different purposes. Consider the purpose of your argument and how that might affect the strategies you choose to employ. Arguments are written for several purposes, each requiring a different approach. Some arguments might try to establish that something is a fact. Other arguments might try to defend or oppose some policy, or support or oppose some action or project. Another type of argument would try to assert the greater value of someone or something. Direction arguments to readers. When writing an argument, make sure you write to the audience that the argument will get through to the most. We know that you cannot convince everyone with your argument, but you are more likely to convince more people if you write to the right audience. Rogerian argument. This type of argument attempts to reduce the antagonism that people with opposing views might feel toward your position. To do this correctly, you need to show that you understand and respect the opposing position as well as acknowledge its good points. Exploratory argument. You don't always have to write an argument to forcefully convince someone. You can also write more to share with your reader how you came to your conclusion. Drafting the argument. When you have a good grasp on what you're writing about, you're ready to draft your paper. Your introduction, evidence, and your conclusion should make up your argument. Revising the argument. Asking yourself questions like these while looking over your argument. Is my topic controversial? Is the paper aimed at the audience I want to reach? Is my evidence sound, adequate, and appropriate to the argument? If I have used analogy, are my points of comparison pertinent to the issue? If I've included an emotional appeal, does it center on those emotions most likely to sway the reader? Is my proposition clearly evident and of the appropriate type? That is, one of fact, policy, action, or value? Is my evidence effectively structured? Is my argument free of falsies? An example of an argumentative writing piece would be a persuasive piece of writing. A persuasive speech or paper's main point is to try to convince or influence others to believe something or help do something. I hope you all got some good information from this and have a great understanding of Chapter 13. All this information I got for this presentation was from the Strategies for Successful Writers book. For further information, you can look at the page numbers I provided below each one of the slides. Thanks for watching. I hope you all got some good information from this and have a great